Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mrs. Reader's Readers, hanging out with Mrs. Hammond. Yesterday, we started the fabulous classic novel, Old Yeller by Fred Gibson. And we learned a lot of things. I'm dropping my pillow. We learned a lot of things. I am just hanging out on this 1860s bed because we learned yesterday that this book, Old Yeller, is the setting is 1860 in Texas. This bed is actually an authentic 1860s. This little doll right here is about, this is my little doll when I was a little girl. And probably from the early 60s. Well, it was from the early 60s, and I still have her. And she's my little ballerina, Madame Alexandra doll. And she's going to hang out right there with us. And she stays on this bed. Okay, I want to tell you guys, I had Laura Bass told me that she wanted to share the video with her grandchildren, but couldn't. So I would want all of you to please encourage everyone to subscribe to the YouTube channel, my YouTube channel. Just put in Hanging Out with Mrs. Hammond, and it should pop up. And then subscribe. There will be all the list of my videos, and then you won't have any problem. You won't have to be searching if you didn't watch them or if you want to keep up with everything. So, Laura, tell your kids to subscribe to Mrs. Hammond's videos on YouTube. And it will be my channel, my personal channel, and everything will be there. I encourage all of you to do that. I know I post them to Facebook, but it's also very important that you subscribe to the channel. Okay, we're going to read chapter 3 today. Oh my goodness. And in chapter 3, I can't wait because remember Arliss. We learned about Arliss, and we learned about Arliss was the little boy. We learned about Travis. Travis was the big brother that's supposed to be taken care of because where did Daddy go? Papa, he went off to Kansas. And Mama and Travis and little Arliss stayed at Birdsong Creek. And Travis is the oldest one, and he's supposed to be taking care of Mama and little Arliss. So today he's going to go hunting. I have some vocabulary that I want to I don't have it written down, but I do want to tell you. Yesterday we talked about middling meat. And middling meat is like middle, in the middle. So if you had some middling meat, it would be the meat that's in the middle. Really good, juicy meat in the middle. Another thing is gnawed, and I think you know what gnawed. If you gnawed on something, you chewed on it. And that's what Old Yeller was doing. Withers. Withers is Withers, and that's the ridge between the shoulder bones of a horse. The withers. And we have the word whetted is to be eager, to make eager, to stimulate, to make it better. We have also outcropping. Outcropping is to come to the surface of the ground. Outcropping. To come to the surface of the ground. Let me see if there's anything else. Venison. Most of you probably know what venison is, but it's deer meat. So maybe today we may find out if Travis kills a deer, because didn't Ma yesterday tell him? She said, Travis, you need to go kill a deer, because what happened in that last chapter? We read chapters 1 and 2, and Old Yeller ate their middling meat, the last of it. So now they have no more meat until they go and kill another deer or wild hog. They ate those, and a lot of us love deer. I like deer. My son, Blake, he hunts all the time, and he brought me some deer meat. In fact, I need to cook that deer meat. In fact, I may cook that, and we'll just have some together, huh? Okay, is everyone ready to read? Everyone ready to read Old Yeller with Fred Gibson? I love your comments. Thank you so much for all of them. Remember to go to YouTube and subscribe to my channel. And then all the videos are listed there. You can watch them so easily and at any time you want. And you can even pause them and save them for later. You don't even have to listen to me all the time that I'm doing this. Okay, so Is everyone ready? I'm going to sit back and I'm going to find my place, and we're going to start chapter 3. Can't wait. Let's see. Let me get in my mode here because I have to change everything. Okay. All right. And remember, this book is written in first person. And who's telling the story? You're right. Travis, the oldest son, is telling the story. So he's the one that's talking. All right. I was willing to go make a try for a fair doe. For a fat doe. What's a doe? It's a female deer, right? Doe, a deer, a female deer. Okay, I was generally more than willing to go hunting, and while I was gone, I might do something about little Arliss and that thieving stray dog. But I didn't much think my thinking would take the turn Mama wanted. So did Travis want that dog? No, he thought he was ugly, and he was a thief because he stole the meat. He didn't want him. He didn't want no yeller. Well, I went and I milked the cow and I brought the milk in for Mom to strain. And I got my rifle and I went out to the lot and caught Jumper. Who's Jumper? We learned about Jumper too. He was their mule. And I caught Jumper and I tied a rope around his neck, half hitched a noose around his nose, and I pitched the rest of the rope across his back. This was the rope that I had reined him with. And then I got me a second rope and I tied it tight around his middle, just back of his withers. What did we say withers was? That's the ridge between the shoulder bones of a horse or a mule. That's where he tied the rope. The second rope I'd use to tie my deer into Jumper's back, if I got one, because he didn't have a trailer to put it in or a truck. I mean, he had to, tie it on the deer or tie it on the mule or something. Papa had shown me how to tie a deer's feet together and pack it home across my shoulders, and I'd done it. But to carry a deer very far like that was a sweat-popping job that I'd rather leave to Jumper. He was bigger and stronger than I was. I mounted old Jumper bareback, and I rode him along Birdsong Creek and across a rocky hog-back ridge. What did that mean, mounted him bareback? That's right. That means he didn't put a saddle on him. Probably didn't have a saddle. So he had to ride him without a saddle, and mounting him meant he jumped on it. I thought how fine it would be if I was riding my own horse instead of this old mule. But I rode down a long, sweeping slope around a scattering of huge, ragged-topped live oaks stood about in grass so tall that it dragged against his underwire of Jumper's belly. I rode to within a quarter of a mile of the salt licks, and then a Jumper tied in the thicket, and I went on afoot. Then he tied Jumper to some trees, and then he jumped off and he started hunting. He was walking around, with his gun. I couldn't make Jumper close to the licks for a couple of reasons. In the first place, he'd go to swishing his tail and stomping his feet or flies and maybe scare off the game. And the game are the deer, the animals that are in the woods. Well, then on top of that, he was gun shy. Oh my goodness. Fire a gun close to Jumper and he'd fall to stabs. He'd snort and wheel to run, fall back again on his rope trying to break butt loose. He'd have a ball and he'd paw the air and take on like he'd been shot just by hearing the shot. Well, when it came to gunfire, Jumper, he didn't have any more sense than a red ant in a hot skillet. A red ant in a hot skillet. I've never heard that. No more sense than that. It was a fine morning, for hunting with the air still and the rising sun shining bright on the tall green grass and the greener leaves of the timber. There wasn't enough breeze blowing for me to tell the wind direction, so I just licked one finger and I held it up like that. And so I licked this finger and I held it up, and sure enough, the side next to me cooled first. So that means that what little push there was to the air, that was away from me toward salt licks. Which wouldn't do it at all. No deer would come to the licks if he caught wind of me first. So I half circled the licks until I had the breeze moving across them toward me, and I took cover under a wild grapevine that hung low out of the top of a gnarled oak. I sat down with my back against the trunk of that tree, and I sat with my legs crossed and my rifle cradled on my knee. And then I made myself get as still as the tree. Because when you're hunting, you have to be still and you can't talk. Papa had taught me that way back when I was little. He had taught me the same as he had taught me to hunt downwind from my game. He always said, it's not your shape that catches a deer's eye, it's your moving. If a deer if he can't smell you, then you can't see you move. He won't even know you're there. So if you can't smell me, can't see me, you think you need to be wearing perfume if you go hunting? No, well, they probably didn't have any, but no. So I sat there holding as still as a stump, searching the clearing around the licks. Then licks was a scattered outcropping of the dark rocks with black streaks in them, and the black streaks held the salt that Papa had got mixed up with the rocks of a jillion years ago. And I don't know how he knew what had happened so far back, but the salt was there, and all the hogs and the cattle and the wild animals in the park of the country came there to lick it. I know that my daddy had cows, and he used to buy these salt blocks and would put them out in horses, and they licked the salt. On one time, Papa said when he and Mama had first settled there, they'd run clean out of salt and had to beat up pieces of that rock and boil them in water. Then they'd use the salty water to season their meat and cornbread. Wild game generally came to lick the rocks in the early morning and the late evenings, and those were the best times to come for meat. Well, the killer animals like bears and panthers and bobcats knew this and came to the licks at the same time, because what were they looking for? They were looking for meat also to eat. Sometimes that we'd get a shot at them. I'd kill 2 bobcats and a wolf bear while waiting for my deer. And once Papa shot a big panther right after it had leaped on a mule coat and broken its neck. With one slap of its heavy forepaw, I hoped I'd get a shot of that bear or the panther this morning. But the only thing that showed up, however, was a little hand of hogs. And I knew better than to shoot them. Make a bad shot and wound one so that he went to squealing, and you'd had the whole bunch after you ready to eat you alive. They were small animals. Oh, their tushes weren't so long as those of the range hogs, but we had their tusks. What are tusks? Their teeth. Running wild in the woods, and they couldn't cut you as deep. But once those hogs got after you, they'd keep after you for a lot longer time. Well, one time, Jed Simpson's boy, he shot into a bunch of those little hogs, and they took after him. My goodness, they treed him up in a mesquite and kept him there from early morning until long after supper time. Well, the mesquite was a small one, and they nearly chewed the trunk of it in two, trying to get to him. Whew, he was scared. Oh. Well, then after that, Roscoe was willing to let those little pigs go. He never touched them again. The pigs moved away, and I saw some bobwhite quail feed into the opening around the licks, and then there came 3 cows with young calves and a roan bull. They stood and they licked at the rocks, and I watched them a while, and then I got to watching a couple of squirrels playing in the top of the tree close to the one that I sat under. The squirrels were running and jumping and chattering and flashing their tails in the sunlight. And one would run along a little tree branch and then take a leaping to the next branch. And there it would sit, fussing and waiting to see if the second one had the nerve to jump that far. When the second squirrel did, the first one would just set up an exciting chatter and make a run for a longer leap. And sure enough, for a while, the leader tried to jump a gap that was too wide. And he missed his branch, clawed at some leaves, and came tumbling to the ground. Well, the second squirrel went to dancing up and down on his branches and then chattering louder than ever. And it was plain that he was getting a big laugh at how that show-off squirrel had made such a fool of himself. Well, the sight was so funny that I laughed, and that's where I made my mistake. Because where that doe had come from and how she got so close within my seeing her, I don't know. It was like she'd suddenly lied down out of the air, like a buzzard or risen up right out of the bare ground around the rocks. Anyhow, there she stood, staring straight at me, sniffing, snorting, and stomping her forefoot against the ground. She couldn't have scented me, and I hadn't moved, but I'd laughed and out loud a little at those squirrels, and that sound had warned her. Well, I couldn't lift my gun then, and with her staring straight at me, she'd see the motion and take a scare. And while Papa was a good enough shot to down a running deer, well, I'd never tried it and didn't much think that I could. I figured it was smarter to wait. Maybe she'd just quit staring at me for a while and then give me a chance to lift my gun up. But I waited and I waited, and still she kept looking at me. And she started coming toward me. And then she'd take one dancing step and then another, and then bob her head and flap her long ears about then and start moving toward me again. I didn't know what to do. I mean, it made me nervous. So then the way that she kept looking at me, and sooner or later she was bound to make out what I was, and then she'd whirl and be gone before I could draw a head on her. She kept doing me that way until finally my heart went to flopping around inside my chest like a catfish in a wet sack. Well, I would feed my muscles tight. I could feel my muscles tightening up all over, and I knew then that I couldn't wait any longer. It was either shoot or bust wide open so that I whipped my gun up to my shoulder. And like I'd figured, she'd snorted and wheeled so fast that she had just brown blur against my gun sights, and I pressed that trigger hoping my aim was good. And after I fired that black powder charge, my gun threw up such a thick fog of blue smoke that I just couldn't see anything. And I reloaded and then leaped up to my feet, and I went running around in the smoke. And when I saw what I saw when I came into the clear against made my heart drop down into my shoes. There went the frightened, snorting cattle stampeding through the trees, and the tails in the air like it was a hill fly time, and right beside them went my doe, running all humped up and with her white tail pointing straight up, clamped high up to her rump, which meant that I'd hit her, but hadn't made a killing shot. Well, I didn't like that. I never minded killing for meat, because like Papa had told me, every creature has to live, to kill, to live. But to wound an animal was something else. Now, I didn't want to do that. So, especially when it's pretty and harmless as a deer. I mean, it made me sick to think of that doe's escaping before, maybe to just get hurt for days before she just finally died. Swung my gun up, hoping yet to get into a killing shot, but I couldn't fire on account of the cattle, and they were too close to the deer, and I might kill one of them. And then suddenly, that doe did a surprising thing. Way down in that flat there, nearly out of sight, she ran head on into the trunk of a tree. Boom! Well, like she was stone blind. Oh my goodness, I saw that flash of her light-colored belly as she went down, and I waited and she didn't get up. And I tore out running through that chin-tall grass as fast as I could go. I was running. And then when I finally reached the place, all out of breath, I found her lying dead with a bullet hole through her middle, right where it had shattered the heart. Oh. Suddenly, I wasn't sick anymore. Oh, I felt big and strong, and I assured myself I hadn't made a bad shot. Oh, if I had caused an animal a lot of suffering, well, all I'd done was just get meat for the family, shooting it on the run, just like Papa did. We had to for our survival. I rode toward the cabin, sitting behind that gutted doe that I'd tied across Jumper's back, and I rode feeling proud of myself. Oh, and as a hunter and a provider for my family. Oh, making a killing shot like that on a moving deer made me feel bigger and more important. Too big and important, I guess. And too fuss with little Arliss about that old yeller dog. Well, I still didn't think much of that idea of keeping him, but I guess that when we are nearly as a man as I am, you just have to learn to put up with a lot of aggravation from little old bitty kids. Well, let Arliss keep that thieving rascal. I guessed I could provide enough meat for him too. Well, that's how I was feeling when I crossed Birdsong Creek and rode up to the spring under the trees, and the house, and then suddenly I felt different. That's when I found little Arliss in the pool again. And in there with him was that big yeller dog. That dirty, stinking rascal romping around in our drinking water. Oh, Arliss! I yelled at little Arliss. You get that nasty old dog out of that water. They hadn't seen me right up. And I guess it was my sudden yell that surprised them both so bad that Arliss went tearing out of that pool on one side and that dog on the other, and Arliss was screaming his head off, and here came that big yellow dog with his wet fur rising all along the ridge of the backbones, baying me like I was a panther. Well, I didn't give him a chance to get to me. I was just too quick about jumping off that mule and grabbing up me some rocks. I was lucky, in that first rock I threw caught that big old dog between the eyes, and I was throwing him hard. And he went down yelling and pitching and wallowing all over. And just as he came to his feet again, I caught him in the ribs with another. Oh! And then that was just too much for him. He turned his tail and then he took out for the house, squalling and bawling. But I wasn't the only good rock thrower in the family. Arliss was only 5 years old, but I spent a lot of time showing him just how to throw a rock. Now, I wished I hadn't, because about then a rock nearly tore my left ear off. Oh my goodness, I whirled around just barely in time to duck. Oh, another one that had caught me square in the eye. Oh, he was throwing those rocks. Well, I yelled, Arliss, you better quit that. But Arliss, he wasn't listening. Oh no, he was too scared and too mad. Oh, he bent over to pick up a big old rock enough to brain me with, and if he'd been strong enough to throw it. Well, when you're 14 years old, you can't afford to mix in a rock fight with your 5-year-old brother, so you just can't do it. So even when you're in the right, you just can't explain a thing like that to your folks. So all they'll do is just point out how much bigger you are, how unfair it is for you to hurt your little brother. So all I could do was turn tail like that yellow dog and head for the house yelling for Mama. And right after me came little Arliss, naked and running as fast as he could down that dead level best to get close enough to hit me with that big rock. And he was packing. Throwing him. And I was running. And I outran him, of course. And then there came Mama running so fast that her skirt was flying and calling out, "What on earth, boys?" I hollered, you better catch that Arliss, as I ran past her, and she did. But that little Arliss, he was so mad that I thought for a second he was going to hit her with those rocks before she could get it away from him. Whew. Well, I was worn out. Well, it all wound up about like I figured. Mama switched little Arliss for playing in our drinking water. She got a switch and switched his legs naked. And then she blessed me out good and proper for being so bossy with him, and that big yellow dog that had caused all the trouble got off scot-free. It didn't seem right and fair to me. I mean, how could I be this man of the family if nobody paid any attention to what I said and what I thought? But I just went and let old Jumper up the house. I led him to the house, and I hung the doe to the live oak tree, and I grew beside the house, and I began skinning it and cutting it to meat. I thought of the fine shot that I'd made, and I knew it was worth bragging about to Mama. But what was the use? I mean, she wouldn't pay me any mind, not until I did something that she thought that I shouldn't have done, and then she'd treat me like I wasn't any older than little Arliss. Well, I sulked and I felt sorry for myself all the time I worked for that meat. And the more I thought about it, the madder I got at that big yellow dog. Oh, I hung that fresh cut of venison up in that dog run right there where Old Yellow had stolen that hog meat the night before he came. I did it for a couple of reasons. Well, to begin with, that was the handiest and coolest place that we had for hanging fresh meat. And on top of that, I was looking for a good excuse to get rid of that dog. And I figured if he stole more of our meat, Mama would have to see that he was too sorry and no account to keep. Old Yeller, let me tell you something. He was too smart for that one. He gnawed around on some of the deer's leg bones that Mama threw away, but not once did he even act like he could smell the meat that was hung up. And that's the end of chapter 3. So we've read chapters 1, 2, and 3. Oh my goodness. He caught a deer, didn't he? Well, he didn't catch one, he shot one. And then little Arliss and Old Yeller were in the drinking water. And he hung that meat right there to tempt Old Yeller. Old Yeller, he was too smart for that, wasn't he? He was too smart for that. But let's see tomorrow what's going to happen in chapter 4. Do you think he's ever going to get to love Old Yeller? I don't know. I bet he does. But we'll have to wait and see. Thank you so much. I appreciate you listening. And please subscribe to YouTube on my channel. See you tomorrow. Bye.